Medical experts are warning that Australia faces increasing shortages of essential hospital drugs and urgently needs a centralised emergency management system to ensure fair distribution. 3 senior medical bodies, including oncology specialists and hospital pharmacists, have written to the Therapeutic Goods Administration calling for an early warning system, following the most recent scare when a critical cancer drug almost ran out. Margot O'Neill reports.
Australia's cancer specialists were shocked to receive an urgent warning from an international drug supplier that stocks of the widely used and essential chemotherapy drug doxorubicin would run out last week. The warning was as blunt as it was alarming. Alternative arrangements will need to be made for both new and ongoing patient treatments.
So it did come as a bit of a shock and left us grasping for ideas about what we might like to treat patients with if the worst did happen and the drug supply just completely dried up.
New supplies were eventually sourced and the crisis averted, but it's the latest in a string of shortages. Last September, it was injectable penicillin. Hospitals were forced to ration when stocks ran dangerously low. Medical experts say that in the past year, up to 90 drugs have run short. Lateline was contacted today by a health professional who had a secret list of more than 30 drugs in short supply in a major New South Wales hospital right now. They included critical antibiotics, adrenaline and some diabetic drugs.
Recently, over the last couple of months, more and more drugs are becoming unavailable.
For instance, intravenous labetalol, which is a very important drug for people who have an acute stroke and need to have their blood pressure measured, kept down low, that actually ran out and we had none left in the hospital and we had to use alternatives that we didn't feel very comfortable using.
It's part of a worldwide problem, with the United States now facing a chronic shortage of more than 200 drugs each year and rising. Most of them traditional essential medicines.
I think the drugs that are vulnerable to the Australian population are the more acute medications that are used within hospitals, particularly the injectable medications like chemotherapies, anaesthetic agents and intravenous antibiotics.
One reason, the rise of less profitable generic drugs and less factories making them. That's weakened and narrowed the international supply chain at a time of rising global demand. So that means if a factory closes, if a batch is contaminated, or if there's a natural disaster, international supplies get squeezed. And because Australia imports most of its essential medicines and it's a relatively small market, it can get squeezed out. That's why some medical groups now want the federal government to step in.
I don't think that in Australia there's any government body that's actually monitoring it, but the FDA in the US are very proactive.
Last week's crisis over the cancer drug doxorubicin is a case in point. Cancer clinics around the country were left in a mad scramble.
Individual hospitals will find out that there may be an issue with a particular drug and some hospitals may not find out. And this is a process that is duplicated in every hospital around every major city, in every town across Australia. So it's a huge wasted effort and quite often we all come out with a slightly different picture depending on who we've spoken to.
And because there's been no official notification that the crisis is over, some patients are still being denied doxorubicin today.
Yeah, I had a phone call this morning from an oncologist who wanted to prescribe doxorubicin for a patient, but was told there was none available. It makes me feel angry, especially when you put yourself in the place of a patient. A patient's being told that they may or may not get the best treatment for them on the basis of information that's incorrect.
Oncology experts, hospital pharmacists and cancer groups have now written to the Therapeutic Goods Administration, or the TGA, asking for a new centralised approach to future drug shortages, including an early warning system, national notification of relevant healthcare practitioners and legislation to ensure the supply and equitable distribution of essential medicines. A statement from the TGA said provisions already existed to ensure continuity of supply and to warn of stock shortages. Margot O'Neill, Lateline.